forums, and I'm not sure that I've ever had anybody come to the microphone and volunteer to pay more tax, so I'll be able to remember this forum very clearly. We're trying to get all these settings right for long-term sustainability, because that's what superannuation was about. I mean, if you think way back when, before the Hawke and Keating governments gave us universal superannuation, superannuation was something that, white-collar people got, public servants got, no one else did, and everybody else just retired on the age pension, and that was the best. People were going to look forward to for the rest of their lives, the age pension and anything they'd managed to put into the bank. We've changed all of that. A Labor scheme wouldn't be here if it wasn't for past Labor governments. Compulsory superannuation. People looking, and the young people around this audience, can look forward to retiring with a decent retirement income. And from the point of view of the nation, it means there'll be less and less of a call from the public purse for the age pension, more people living on their super. So how do you get all of that right so that you're balancing the incentives to put money into super? We've worked hard to do that. It is very concessionally taxed when you're in the drawdown phase, when you're retired. I think, we looked at this long and hard. We think we've got the cut-off points right, and you are below those cut-off points. So we didn't want to dissuade people from putting money away because they thought they were going to hit a big tax bill in retirement, so we haven't done that. One thing I'm particularly passionate about is we are boosting up the super of people who have got low incomes, because they'll retire on less. They're often women who have taken some time off to have kids and have gone back into the workforce part-time. This is contested politics. We want to make sure that there is a continuation of that low-income superannuation contribution. So that's something that people can think about. But I do want to bolster at the lower end, and we've only put taxes on at what is the upper end, and you're obviously below that.
PM, one of the big complaints is often to both sides of politics, stop tinkering with super. Are you able to give any sort of assurance, guarantee that you'll leave these changes now and the super system untouched?
Well, we did at the same time that we announced these changes, said we want stability in the system, and we've all, putting in a set of advisors who would, publicly advise on any future changes. I agree this is an area that needs longer-term policy settings, because, there are people in this audience who won't retire for 35, maybe 40 years. So with the maximum stability, we've got to let them know what the system's going to offer them right at that time in life.
Even if George wants to pay more tax. Thanks for that question. Let's get our next one.
Hello, Prime Minister. My name's Jared. I'm a landscape architect. My question's in relation to same-sex partnerships. I think that the Parliament has failed in its duties to provide order to the GBLTI community, because it's once again not passed any kind of civil relationship recognition. And I think that having a conscience vote, if Tony Abbott isn't going to allow it, is just a political connivance. I was wondering, could the Labor Party possibly go ahead to the next election with not only a vote on civil unions but also civil marriages? In that way, same-sex relationships will at least have something at the end of next political term.
Okay, well, what we have done, and then what else you're asking us to do, what we have done, and I'm glad we've done it, is we've, across dozens and dozens and dozens of federal laws, we've equalised treatment for same-sex couples. So, there was equal treatment between married couples and de facto heterosexual couples. We've extended that, so there's equal treatment for same-sex couples. So that's things like social security, superannuation, immigration rules, all the rest of it. We've equalised treatment. So that has been a big thing to do. My recollection is it was more than 90 laws that needed changing. So that's been achieved. We've had the vote on changing the Marriage Act to enable same-sex marriage. We had a conscience vote. The other side of politics didn't, and there wasn't the majority to change the laws. In terms of what should happen next, I mean, I think this is something that, as a community, people might want to put different views, but my understanding is that overwhelmingly people are now not asking for a civil unions structure. They are asking for a change to the marriage laws. And I don't think that people with states have got civil union laws so that same-sex couples can have recognition under those state laws. So I think we're in a world now, frankly, where the change federally that people will want contemplated and contemplated again, given it failed in this parliament, is a change to the Marriage Act.
Yes.
I think that's what Jared wants. Thank you very much for that question, Jared. Let's get our next question.
Hi, Prime Minister Gillard. My name's Donna and I'm a filmmaker. I've always voted for the Labor Party as it has best represented my ideals. However, the current position on live exports of animals has me deeply concerned. As our awareness of cruel practices within this and related industries become increasingly highlighted, the pragmatic motive of job preservation becomes severely challenged. Are you and your government putting pragmatism above important human values?
Thank you for your question, and I'm very much exposed to this perspective on the debate. You'd find some friends in my family who put this perspective. What we've tried to do is get a balance right, and sometimes when you look to get a balance right in a difficult area, there are lots of people on both sides of the debate who aren't happy with you, but that's what we've sought to do. Where this sort of started, we've got the live animal export trade, cattle and sheep. I think the explosion into public consciousness was around that Four Corners report, which showed dreadful acts of animal cruelty. I was actually in and around the Northern Territory not long after that report and spoke to some of the people who raise animals for live animal export. And they had tears in their eyes. I mean, they had watched this footage and they're in the trade and they don't want to see animals treated like that. So, I just think we can get a bit black and white on the stereotypes and who thinks what about animal welfare and animal cruelty. But I did see, tough-looking men with tears in their eyes because of that footage. What we then sought to do, we put the ban in place, and that was very controversial, We put it in place to say we'll have this trade, but we'll have it when we can monitor animal welfare conditions once animals are exported. And so that's what we're doing now. Now, there are some people who say, well, you shouldn't have stopped the trade at all and it all could have fixed itself and you cost people money. There are other people who say, well, it hasn't gone far enough and we should stop the trade. I think where we've got the balance is right. There'll be the trade, there'll be the jobs that come from the trade, there'll be the exports, but there'll also be the tracking and tracing. So,
thanks, Donna. Let's get our next question.
Good evening, Prime Minister. It's an honour to spend this evening with you, despite the fact that you're for the Western Bulldogs. Sorry. I have two questions that hopefully are closely linked. They're around tax.
Let's get your name, sorry.
Oh, beg your pardon. I'm Jodie, and I'm a primary teacher by qualification, but currently a full-time foster carer. I'm aware that faith-based organisations provide numerous services around the areas of emergency relief and welfare. Those organisations rely on the current tax structure in order to remain financially viable. Have you any plans to change the current taxation arrangements within the next 12 months?
There's been there are changes, but they're changes we've worked with charities and churches on. And I'd have to say, Jodie, if you want to follow this in real detail, I'm going to have to get your address and get you some more detail.
Sure.
What we've tried to do is there's this part of the Tax Act that's called the Deductible Gift Register. So when churches and charities say, if you give us some money, you'll get a tax deduction, they are the ones who are under that register. Yes. There's been some questions about how it works and how fair it is and how we can deal with it in a more rational way, because there's some organisations